Hey, it's Leilani with the Magical Solution. We are live here on my channel, um, on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all the places. Today is our book club. We do this, I try and do this every Tuesday, sometime between 6 and 8 p.m. But yeah, doesn't always work out that way, but we do try. So yeah, our book club, if you don't know already, um, we explore various spiritual practices and we read the texts of those spiritual practices. Right now, we are focusing on spiritualism, spiritism, and espiritismo. And so we have been going through the popular texts that hold on one second, that really, you know, laid the framework for what we know of as spiritualism, spiritism, and espiritismo today, right? So we had already done the first 3 of the first 5 books of Allan Kardec's, whole little series, his whole codices. So we already did that. That's on my YouTube channel. Then we went to an author named Chico Xavier, and he is a medium who channeled a spirit named Andres Luis, and we read one of his numerable amounts of books that he has published. We've only done one, and I'm already getting tons and tons of reviews to go back to that particular author and read a couple more of his books, because he really deep dives into mediumship and the mechanics of mediumship, and like really, he's the one who actually set the framework for a lot of what we think the afterlife is, or what the after schooling is with regards to our deceased loved ones. So yeah, we're definitely going to be going back to him. But today, along with the last couple of Tuesdays that we've been together, we have chosen the Harmonial Philosophy by Andrew Jackson Davis. Now, Andrew Jackson Davis is an American spiritualist who really gave us the uh, cosmology and like whole system behind how God, nature, and the spirits function, and what these worlds look like, and what these spirits are like, and how it all materialized and purposes and all this other stuff. Very, very scientific mind. Amazing dude. Now, he's another one that had written a bunch of texts that are like this thick and very, very complicated language. And instead of me reading each and every one of these books, I figured, you know what? Let me read the Harmonial Philosophy, because it is a compilation of his books that really kind of break down each of those subjects that all of us are so interested in learning about. So let's get to it. So today we are on chapter 3 of the book. Now, those of you who are on TikTok, first of all, thank you guys so much for joining me on my live. If you are on TikTok, I want you to stay. Don't get me wrong. However, if you like to read along with me and actually see the text, I highly suggest that you go to my YouTube channel or my Facebook, um, which is at the Magical Solution, so that you can read along with me. Otherwise, if you're down to just listen and pop in a question here and there, by all means, stay, share, make sure you subscribe, let people know, because this book is fascinating and so much fun to go through, and I think it's worth hanging out. All right, so let me share screen with my people so that we can get this party started. And those of you who are in my chat, um, let me know when you can see my screen. Okay. Here it is. Boom. And beautiful. Boom. All right, just give me a thumbs up or something when you can see my screen. Now, again, those of you on TikTok who want to see the screen, just head over to my YouTube channel. If you don't mind just hanging out and listening, welcome. My name's Leilani. All right, Let's get to it. So the third chapter in this book is entitled The Central Sun. Sun as in the star, okay? The original self-existent, omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, productive power, the soul of all existences, is throned in a central sphere, the circumference of which is the boundless universe. And around this, the sidereal systems revolve in silent sublimity and harmony. This power is what mankind calls deity, God, whose attributes are love and wisdom, corresponding with the principles of male and female, positive and negative, creative and sustaining. The first goings forth, or outbursts, from the great celestial center are spiritual or vital suns, which then give birth to natural suns, being those that are cognizable by the outward senses of man. These again become centers or mothers from which earths are born, each minutest particle of which is infused with the vivifying spirit of the present of the parent formator. The essences of heat or fire, aka electricity, galvanism, magnetism, are natural manifestations of that productive energy, which is the vitalizing cause of all existences. It pervades all substances and animates all forms. So let's pause for just a second here before I move on to the next paragraph. So he's describing what we call God as this sphere before spheres, this central sun, this sort of cosmic vital force that then gives birth to the material or the material sun, which then that gives birth to all other types of life form. Interesting language, right? Interesting language. And all of the life forms also are considered mothers and or sons, the stars, who can create and make more creations. That doesn't necessarily mean birth. That doesn't necessarily mean giving birth to a child. This could also mean just simple innovation and creativity and invention, right? Either way, everything that comes from this first central sun is infused or injected with that source energy. Okay? So that's what that paragraph meant basically. So the great spiritual and eternal truth which it is necessary for man to know and realize before he can know himself and be happy, is that all manifest substances are expressions of an interior productive cause, which is the spiritual essence. We just said it. Now, the mineral kingdom is an expression of motion, the vegetable kingdom, an expression of life, the animal kingdom, an expression of sensation, and while the man is an expression of intelligence. The planets in our solar system are a perfect expression of the sun from which they sprang. The various combined bodies and planetary systems in the universe are a perfect expression of the great sun of the universal column. Now, the great sun is a perfect expression of the spiritual sun within it. And the spiritual sun is a perfect expression of the divine mind, love, or essence. The spiritual sun is thus the center and cause of all material things. It is a radiating atmosphere or atmosphere of great eternal cause, an aroma a garment of the more interior essence, the divine creative soul. The material universe is a perfect representation of the spiritual universe in which nothing exists but what is everlasting and infinite. The whole material system is the body of the creative soul, and the spiritual essence has unfolded and manifested itself in a material form. This form is the order and wisdom of divine mind. Okay, I think that's self explanatory. I don't think I need to get into that, right? Now, love, light, and love constitute the first development of the spiritual sun, and that was light. And light, inconceivable, which became illuminated space itself. Ooh, what? Let's say that again. Let's say that again. Let's say that again. Ready? Light and love constituted the first development of the spiritual sun, and that was light and life inconceivable, which became illuminated space itself. All right, y'all can marinate on that. Y'all can marinate on that. Okay? Yet space is not limited, neither could it transcend the expansive illuminations of the great spiritual sun. When the universe was completed, order and form reigned omnipresent throughout the whole universal multiverse, if you will. Such was the grand, stupendous development of the great spiritual sun. This having developed the material sun, and this the expanded universe. So, therefore, far and beyond the countless constellations throbs the heart of life and animation. It pulses flow to the circumference of all planetary existence. This heart is God, the center of all that is. Okay, so to kind of bring it back, okay? The knowable and unknowable multiverse. The knowable and unknowable multiverse. The infinite potentiality of existence. Still cannot outrun the expansiveness of God, and yet cannot escape God because God is innately within all of that. And so when the spiritual sun is created, meaning the divine, when the mind, when the possibility of multiverses and dimensions and existence came to be, the minute that happened, it was a spiritual sun that occurred. It was a bubble, a little thought form in this vastness that we call God. And that little thought form, that little bubble, is the same bubble that then give birth to all of those possibilities as these quote unquote material suns. These infinite possibilities that we're talking about, these known and unknown universes that we're talking about, exist within this little boop, bubble. And the bubble itself pulsates and creates motion, which has a domino effect of creating life. And that pulse not only is part of creating it, but that pulse moves throughout the entire conceptual existence of it all. Does that make sense to you guys? That sounds crazy, but it makes sense to me, and I get where the author is coming from. So let me know, like, if I have to explain it in a different way. All right. So previous to the present structure of the universe, When inconceivable realms of immensity were channels through which flowed an ocean of formless materials, the infinite spirit was manifested only as a principle of motion. Incessant, unrestrained, unchangeable, omnipotent action was the first manifestation of deity. Boom. Read that again, y'all, right there. Incessant, unrestrained, unchangeable, omnipotent action was the first manifestation of deity. So that pulse that we were talking about, right? That pulse that we were describing, that not only is the bubble, but moves throughout the bubble and is a part of every possible living thing within that bubble, right? So that is what we perceive as God, even though really God is that vastness that expands beyond the bubble, and that bubble is just one bubble of an infinite bubbles of God's desire to do something with itself. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's wild when you think about it that way. And so that pulsing, that movement in this cosmology is what we would call God, or what this author would call God. It must not be apprehended that God was otherwise than an organized intelligence, but there were no media sufficiently unfolded for a higher operation of the creative principle except motion only. Nor must it be that inferred that God is subject to the identical laws of association, progression, and development, which proceed from him and operate in all things. Did you hear that? Nor must it be inferred that God is subject to the identical laws of association, progression, and development which precede him and operate in all things. So let's not forget who God is in this context. From that cosmology, that bubble, that pulsating idea, that thing, that spiritual sun, that is what we consider God. And what this author is saying, that the laws of association, progression, and development surpass that, which means those are laws that are laws. If that makes sense. that even God, concept of God, is not exempt from, right? But we can't infer that either. We can't infer that either, because we don't know what the true sources intentions are. So we can't even infer that either. And that's what makes these conversations so whimsical and paradoxical and fun, because it says one thing and it has a million reasons for that one thing, but it also has a million reasons for the opposite of that thing. And that's the fun of it. That's the fun of it, right? Anyway, so these laws are expressions of the creator's habits, the constitutional tendencies of his divine nature. The God of the universe is not a being of development or growth. Ooh, that's gonna hurt some people. The God of the universe is not a being of development or growth. He is a fixed fact, a fixed principle, a fixed heart of perfection and infinite intelligence. But he displays the attributes of his being in successive and endless series and degrees, each unfolded in progressive and harmonious order. Woo! That was what? That is going to ruffle some feathers of some people. That really is, because once again, we are making this idea of God, or what, or the beyond God. That's what we would call it, the beyond God. Um the beyond God, once again, we're phrasing it only for now, as an external thing, something out there, something far, far away. right? But the reality is it is telling you right here and now that God is not separate from its creation. The beyond God is not separate from the spiritual sun, who's not separate from the material sun, who's not separate from all the creations from the material sun, and who's not separate from all of their creations, and so on and so forth, right? And so, what is being said here is that God is the ultimate fixed truth, that layer, that Planck's scale, that those divine waters, if you will, in which that little bubble rests on, right? And that little bubble and all the living things and all the infinite possibilities that exist within that little bubble will experience this Planck scale, this universal fixed truth by its unfoldment in our intelligences and in our experiences in a way that is progressive and and harmonious to our order, which is why it is as above so below. When God is moving through these spaces, he allows himself to be to play by our rules and to unfold to the best of our intelligence and development. But yet he is beyond. He is the beyond. Everything we could possibly even think of, it's it's not that. And yet it's all of it. It's all of it and absolutely none of it at all. And that's again fucking wild. Yay. Let's just blow minds tonight, right? So the great vortex of celestial intelligence, nucleus of omnipotence, center of love, flower of wisdom, is the irresistible magnet which draws upward the human soul. And this, my friends, is where we get the law of progression. The law of progression. So, when we go back, God is not God of the universe is not of development and growth. He is a fixed principle, a fixed fact, a fixed heart, all of this, right? But he displays himself in the successive endless series of degrees, and he unfolds himself in progressive and harmonious order in order to, because that action right there, these habits right here, is what makes him magnetic. And I'm saying him because we live in a patriarchal society. That's what I've been conditioned to say. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. All right. Her, it, they, the God beyond. These behaviors is what makes them magnetic. Magnetic and makes you magnetic. These same behaviors can make you magnetic. And what does that magnetism look like? That looks like a spiraling upward, where the two ends of a magnet are pulling at each other, right? They're attracting each other, and the soul spins out of the body in a spiral upward motion. And that type of visual, I want you to kind of think about that in your mind's eye. That's what we are doing here. And that's that spiral that we're talking about. That's reincarnation, you guys. That's samsara. That is what we are in until we can figure the shit out. And every lifetime, every little bit we figure out, we spin upwards. You get what I'm saying? And right now, some of y'all are just spinning in space. You're just spinning on a freaking mouse wheel and you're not going nowhere. And you know why? Because, and we'll talk about all of this later. We're definitely going to get into all that later. But this idea of connecting to that central sun, which is the title of this chapter, connecting to that central sun, which is the same central sun that exists in the material sun, the same central sun that exists in the spiritual sun, etc., etc. When connecting to that, you are magnetizing, you are elevating, you are ascending, you are illuminating, you are spiraling upward. And each lifetime is a progressive opportunity for you. And so if you waste your lifetime, let's say you just live life, you don't do shit, you don't do anything good, right? It's not that you're going to go backwards, because in this paradigm, in this cosmology, this is a law of progression. This is a divine law of progression. So in this cosmology, if you fuck up or don't do anything at all, you just simply stagnate. You simply just get reborn with maybe some, a little bit of different circumstances to help facilitate certain other growths and whatnot and whatnot. But for the most part, you're staying within that same intelligence. Whereas if you spend that lifetime connecting to Central Sun, you spend that lifetime in service, you spend that lifetime, in elevated types of behavior, um you begin to spiral upwards, and therefore that next lifetime, now your circumstance is starting at a higher intelligence, a higher capacity to learn, to feel, to be spiritually attuned. You have a higher threshold for that now. You have a higher awareness for that now, so that in your next life it comes to you faster and you're able to make actions on that faster. And then in the next life, now other things are coming your way to position you in a spiral upward motion. And anyone who has lived a life of more than 22 years, random number, I know, a life more than 20 years, can honestly say to themselves that they have seen short little glimpses, little periods of time, that when they start eating right, when they go to the gym, when they start doing stuff, it's like all of a sudden all the good things start happening. It's like, oh my God, I got a job. Oh my God, this new man. Oh my God. And like everything just seems to be coming up roses for you because you find a new vibe and a new alignment. The problem is consistency. The problem is people showing up for themselves every single day in the same way, even on the days when you don't want to. But I digress. We are back to our philosophical book. Let's keep it moving. Okay. But wow, that statement was crazy. Okay. It is the sensorium of the divine mind, the central spring of all action and vitality, the fount of magnificence and perfection. He lives through all things, but more especially in the great spiritual sphere or sun of the universe. God is the soul of that universe, which is therefore the body of God and a perfect representative or bold and clear expression of the interior divine mind. Even as the human form is an express likeness of the quality of its interior soul. Did you get that? Your physical body is an express likeness of your interior soul. So, again, if you're in this space of stagnation in your next life, all of those things will vibrate in that way that you left it. This is why my father used to tell me, and my mom used to tell me when I was little, don't claim your sickness. They would say things like that to me. They'd be like, don't say I am this, um or wake up in the morning and go, oh, I don't feel good. Like, don't whine and complain and put yourself in this headspace, because that is a headspace that is literally keeping you here. And next thing you know, you are getting sick, you are feeling ill, you are just in this constant state of uncomfortableness that you've put yourself in, right? Like, you could see these little mini expressions of this in your day-to-day life. You could see it with people that you love. What he's talking about here is nothing profound, and yet at the same time it is. It really is. It goes to show how invested we are, or how little invested we are in being co-creators of our lives. You know what I mean? Okay, y'all. So that was the end of book 1. It was only 3 little chapters. It was short. It was a little just chunk of what God is and what he felt God was. That was his thoughts. And that was all compiled from his different writings. Let me I kind of want to go back a little bit because there's some footnotes that I skipped. Um and those footnotes are also really important to make sure we don't follow. We don't skip. I think that was the last one that I read. I don't recall. Damn, that sucks. Understand mathematics, hated it when it was confronted with the Russian court. Okay, I definitely did not read this one with the algebra in it, so I'm gonna start there because I don't remember if I read the other footnotes before that, but this one I definitely did not read. Um, so there was an infidel named Diderot who did not understand mathematics and hated it, and when he was confronted with them um, after the flee of the Russian court, because one who knew his weakness said to him in a large assembly at the palace, Monsieur de Trot, a plus b multiplied by a plus b equals a squared, and 2ab plus b squared. And then I got to go back to this part. It follows that there is a God. The argument is not convincing and would frighten no one but de Trot. It is comparable to the famous God geometrices. All such reasoning is at most a restatement of the truth that the modes of manifestation are interpreted to our minds as law, and hence, in the search after God, must be transferred in the last resource from all whatsoever that is without us to the mind itself. Woo! Oof. So basically, what is being stated here is that, you know, we kind of get ahead of ourselves sometimes with the science and the math. And yes, we as spiritists, spiritualists, and espiritistas always put science and mathematics as top tier. Intelligence is part of the progressive movement. But at the end of the day, what is being stated here is that we tend to get ahead of ourselves and believe that our mathematics, our sciences, our things are now law because they consistently can map out our universe. We're able to interpret our universe because of these tools. And so these tools are now law, which in essence is true. It's true within natural law. But what is being stated here is that despite all of these modes of understanding our natural universe, they are still just modes that are modeled after divine mathematics or divine science or divine, you know what I'm saying? You feel me? So that's that whole piece there that he's talking about. And this individual who's, was really angry at the time, is saying that they call it God geometrics. That's like God mathematics, and that it's silly. We can apply this to natural law, which is a reflection of God's law, but we cannot apply it to God. Uh, all right, let's keep going with this footnote really quick. So it is satisfactory to see that Davis recognizes in his own manner that cognancy of this view, and also that the true witness is our inner consciousness. He makes use of it, however, to establish the fact of causation in the world without, rather than to discover its evidences by exploring the inward world. There are sound suggestions notwithstanding in the inward world. Notwithstanding in several points that follow. For the last tribunal is within us, and whatsoever may testify to us in the world without, whether that world be one of physics or of spirit, makes appeal to our invisible judge, and so stands or falls. Ooh. Okay, let's keep going. I'll explain all this. I'll explain all that. So moreover, because of the judge, it is true to say that we live already in the spirit world, for the judge is spirit. It is true also that we are, and then I have to go all the way down to the other page. Okay, there we go. Sons and heirs of universal empire, For therein we move and have our being, and by the spirit of inward grace and truth we find God who is within. So, what that was saying ultimately is that our intelligence gives us discernment, gives us the ability to judge from a higher mind, a divine mind. And that judgment is central to our spiritual connection, because we are not just judging based on our five senses. We're judging based on all of our senses. And anyone who knows me knows that I teach about the clairs, and not just the 8 clairs. What'd you say, Leilani? Not just the 8 clairs. Not just the 8 clairs. Not just the 22 clairs. Leilani, what'd you say? 22 clairs. Hmm. Not just the 78 clairs. Bitch, what did you say? Leilani, what'd you say? Yeah. Yeah, babes. Yeah, while these new agers are telling you all about the cute little, clairs, there's deeper science to this, right? And so we're not just perceiving our world with our five senses. We're not just perceiving our world, you know, with our clairs. We are perceiving our world with spirit. And all of that perception, all of that information gets taken in not just through our brain, which is like our material thing. Half of it gets processed in our dreams, the other half we react to, and then the other half we just fucking throw away sometimes. But for the most part, it's like that. But we're also interpreting that information through spirit. And so that right there makes us a soul experiencing a manifestation. We can actively co-create our existence when we come from that awareness. And that is what they're talking about here in these chapters, and how, and that central sun, that central connection is God. Like, it is God. We're not talking about spirit. That's only a layer, right? Like, we have our physical body, we have our spirit body, and then we have we have God, that central sun. That's the motherfucker we're talking about here. That's what at least Andrew Jackson Davis is talking about here in this book. So then we get into this last chapter, and there was only, I think, 2 footnotes that I missed. So it says here, see the discourse entitled "The End of the World" in Morning Lectures. That's one of his documents. In another place, and referring presumably to divine prototypes, it is said that the central sun contains inconceivably vast universes. While the highest angelic intelligence can never hope to comprehend the infinite wealth of divine perfections, it is possible to understand analogically the constitution and operations of the great center by the study of other centers nearer to our own situation. The fact of a physical sun originating actually and governing all around it is an illustration within its own measures of the central sun. So again, this is just kind of like rah rah to sun god type of spiritualities, rah huzzah to the patriarchal sun, right? So yeah, we get that piece of it, and that definitely expresses that. But there's something else that's expressing here. It's basically like, look, like when you would take this knowledge and you apply it to what we do as mediums, it's basically saying to us, look, what this divine law is talking about here is that when we commune with spirits, what we are essentially doing is communicating with spirits of likeness to our own situation. Hence, the dead, the muertos, right? We do this not because we are trying to do brujeria on someone or get a leg up on someone, but to understand the nature of our existence as co-spirits in this situation and progress with each other by doing things for each other, working in conjunction with each other. And then here's the hoot. Here's the hoot. The hoot is that we forget we're spirits too, and we can do that with ourselves here in the world. It's called collaboration. It's called cooperation. It's called getting along with your fucking neighbor, bro. Like, the opportunity isn't just with the spirits of the dead. And as mediums, we can give examples by working with spirits of the dead. But at the end of the day, the best model that we can be is by doing that in our real life with real people and real spirits that are walking around. Anyway, but that's what this law essentially says to us. It essentially talks about that. Then it also implies as well, it implies here that these angelic intelligences, these angelic realms, these higher spheres of intelligences or levels of purity or levels of perfection, whatever you want to fucking call it, the spiraling upwards, the higher up on the spiral, although they themselves, these angels in these higher spheres, although they themselves still will never, ever, ever come near or close to the beauty and perfection and purity of God itself, but by their sheer movement in the upward spiral, these upper sort of ideas, by tapping into them, spirit guides, we are then given graces. We are then given prophecies. We are then given messages. We are then healed. We are then X, Y, and Z to help us and assist us in giving us vital fluid, in giving us vital force in order for us to do the work here with each other and with spirits of the dead. Because at the end of the day, as a medium, what we're talking about here, we're like, honestly, like what we do requires vital force. What we do requires a very strong vessel. What we do requires energy. It's work. And you don't get that just by praying it away, just by connecting with your spirits. Yeah, your spirits can inject into you vital fluid. Yes, they can heal your fluid within your body, and they can serve you in that way and give you light. Yes, they can do all of those things, but at the end of the day, you are still obligated to follow natural law. Your body is of the natural world. If you are not taking care of your vessel, it doesn't matter how much fluid you got. It don't matter how many spirits you got. It don't matter how good your divination is. If you do not know how to channel that, if you do not know how to move that without harming yourself and those around you, that's a problem. But what this, and that's again me and my high horse, because you know how I be talking. But what these footnotes are really discussing here are those two, those two possibilities within mediumship. Okay. Let me go down to this last one. I think it was only like one more. Yeah, it was one more. Okay. So it's once more, therefore, love is the center of the universe, as it is said elsewhere to be the center of man's own inner life, described as a substantial principle, an element as real as light or electricity, the seed, fountain of affection, volition, and intellect. And that is a quote directly from Andrew Jackson Davis, from his great work called The Great Harmonia. Okay. So this paragraph to end of the sentence here indicates, and it is taken from A Stellar Key to the Summer Land, and that is, the manifestation of light and life, of course, postulates space, and so also does any process of becoming, but it will be understood that the seership of Davis was apart from any training in philosophy. Okay, so this one is a little bit right. So we kind of expressed that already, when we talk about sort of that central sun, that inner flame. Another sort of common imagery we'll see is like the seed, that little seed, the mustard seed, right? That can move mountains, that guy. Um, and what it's talking about is that little mustard seed, through its pulsing, right? It's like a little heart. that not only radiates light and heat, but life force, vital force, right? So what this whole thing is that Andrew Jackson Davis is talking about, in a sense, kind of infers a little bit this idea of taking up some kind of space, being material in some type of way, which, believe it or not, we have testimony, if you will. We have science that shows that this substance is quite material within us. So, in the first testimony of Davis, the central sun is identified with the great positive mind, and it's termed the fountain, the great illuminator, unchangeable and eternal, governing all existence. Whatsoever is subordinate to this mind is negative in respect thereof, the manifest creation included. So, that is a quote from his other work called The Principles of Nature. Right? And ultimately, what he's saying is that central sun, that God beyond, that those waters that all these bubbles exist upon, um, because that is the greatest fixed thing, anything else that postulates, that comes forth from that, meaning all of its creations henceforth, will always be quote unquote negative. Think about the term again, look at my face, you guys, and we're talking about magnetism here. We're trying to do an upward spiral motion up towards God. In order to do that, he needs to be one end of the magnet, we need to be the other, right? We are the negative end of the magnet, he is the positive end of the magnet, right? This is what we're taught. This is the language we need to start listening to and start thinking about, okay? And so essentially, you know, he even the creation in which we call God, the thoughts of our God, it still falls within that realm of the bubble, right? Okay. It is on the basis of this sentiment that Davis speaks frequently of nature, understood, however, in a certain archetypal sense as a divine mother. The deity being divine father, thus postulating an ineffable state of spiritual marriage between them. Right. Very common motif, so when we see this God beyond, this fixed active force, we immediately make that the divine father, right? And then all things that sprung forth of that, all creation from that the divine father is still infused in, but is not essentially a part of, just kind of like that divine observer that just sits in everything, right? But everything else after that would be considered divine nature, divine mother, mother God, etc., etc. Okay, and that their union, their marriage, their union is ultimately what we are seeking. We are seeking the union of this. So again, these are motifs that are very common. It also kind of pushes the heteronormative narrative. It pushes a lot of just like very, you know, Puritan type thoughts of the time, right? But we're taking this more in a deeper esoteric, from a deeper esoteric standpoint, okay? It is also said that the center of the universe is the sun around which all spirits revolve as planets about their primary. The center of the universe being whatever emanates forth from divine father and divine mother. So that's all things. All things is divine sun, the center of the universe, right? The material sun. All right. So is that, oh, wow. So that is the end of that chapter. Yay. So I think we'll pause here and we'll take questions. I think that's what we need to do. We're going to take questions now. All right. Woo. That was a long one. How's everybody feeling? Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Oh, man. Any thoughts on tonight's read? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, it was a pleasure reading for you guys, as usual. And hopefully, I'll see you guys here again next Tuesday. We will see. I try my best to come on here between 6 p.m. and like 9 p.m. if I can. Um, but we'll see. And for those of you who are interested in spiritism, spiritualism, espiritismo, if you're interested in developing your mediumship, if you are, you know, very serious about your work and, you want to hang out and learn a few things, stop by my website, www.themagicalsolution.com. And yeah, join my YouTube so that you guys can continue watching these types of videos. Okay, all right, really quick. You guys have been requesting my interviews be coming back. They are coming back. It's been so weird in terms of scheduling. Like when I tell you it's been weird, it's been so weird. And there's nothing like spooky about it. It's just like, there's something in the air in terms of people have missions. We're on missions, you know what I'm saying? And like we keep passing each other by. You know what I'm saying? So rest assured that in May, my interview podcast, This Is How We Grow, will be back. So stay tuned, join my email list so that you know who my lineup is for May, etc., etc. And yeah, that is it. Any questions? Any questions? What do we got? What do we got? What do we got? Bye.